We're live on Facebook and
Cool.
YouTube. We are live on Instagram.
All right. One of the all right. So what we're going to talk about today is leadership systems. And one of the biggest challenges that I see a lot of owners have is when they ask for a task to be done and they don't inspect what they expect, they don't follow up with the person, and they're unhappy with the result. And a lot of times it's because they don't give clear instructions, they don't define what the definition of done is. And there's no system or process in place. And so typically when it comes to business, you're going to have two problems. It's a people problem or a process problem. And when I have an owner and they come to me and they're saying that, hey, no one's doing this, no one's doing that, no one's following through with this particular task or this whatever they want out of their salon, I ask them for the process. Like, what's the process you have that you put in place to ensure that that gets done? And then they look at me like a deer in headlights. Well, I don't have a process for that. Well, then, so how do you know if it's a people problem or a process problem? Like, if you don't give it the proper process to the person, then how do you know if it's the wrong person for the job? So it's important that you first have a good process in place, a system in place. And then if it's not being followed up on, if it's not being completed, if it's not being done properly, you could take a look at the process, see if it's broken or it needs to change. And if you change it and it still has an issue, then it might be a people problem. But the first thing I like to do is make sure that it's it's the process and the process is in place and they have a process and a system. And then I first do that and then I look for the person or the people in charge. Because you hired somebody for a reason. If you have a really good hiring process, then it should be the right person. You may just put the wrong person with the right process. And if that's the case, then you swap out the person, put them somewhere else, and keep the process the same. But I typically like to look at the process. And when I talk to that leader, they're like, well, how do I form a process? What do I do? Today, we're going to talk about that. So, leadership systems, leading with outcomes and process. So, the objective of this particular lesson is to give you the essential components of leadership by combining the importance of communicating outcomes, implementing processes, and leveraging a leadership philosophy to ensure long term success. So, if you want freedom in your business, like you want to be able to leave the salon, you want to be able to go on vacation and not worry about anything, you need to make sure that those two things are in place. You have the right people and you have the right process. So, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to share my screen right now with you, and we're going to take a look at what I'm looking at right here. All right. If you're watching this live, you can't see this, but you're going to be able to watch it on YouTube. So, go to the YouTube channel. You can just listen in for now. All right. Step one, communicating the vision. Start with the end in mind. To lead effectively, you must first communicate a clear vision, and a vision sets the direction and lets your team know the outcome you want to achieve. You have to clarify the outcome. You have to be crystal clear on what your definition of done is. So define what success looks like, but be as detailed as possible. Let your team know the desired result and why it matters. See, that's another part of this whole system is if they don't know why it matters, they're like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. I could do it tomorrow. I could do it the next day." You have to let them know why it's important. You have to define to them what done looks like. So when they come to you and be like, hey, I finished the project, it's really done. And if you don't have that definition of done explained to them, then they're going to be kind of lost. They're going to not know what to do, when does it finish, how to deliver that result to you. So a lot of times it's up to the leader to clarify that. And that's where the ball gets dropped a lot of times. When you're in a rush, you're working on clients, you're running around, you have a lot going on in the salon, you kind of explain half-ass what you want done, but you don't really tell them. And I'm not saying micromanage people. I'm not saying take them through every step, show them exactly what to do. There's something I like to implement. I got this from Dan Martell. It's the 10-80-10 rule. You define what the definition of done is. You take them through 10% of the project. You give them 80% of the project with the systems we're about to go over and the process we're about to go over. And then the last 10%, you go over that with them. You take a look at how they did, where the bottleneck was, where they could have improved on. If they do a phenomenal job on their 80%, guess what? It's their task. They own it. It's their job. And you could back up off it. But you always inspect what you expect. So every now and then, you should be setting up a 10-minute phone call, 5-minute check in, something to make sure that you're checking in with that person to make sure that task is still being done and there's no issues with it. So after you clarify the outcome and you give them what the definition of done is, you're going to want to create some kind of a system. And systems are the foundation for success. So let me give you an example real quick. So your vision is to grow your client retention rate by 20% this quarter. How are you going to do that? Well, we're going to do it with personalized follow-up outreach to the customers to see how the experience was. So you need to make sure that the person understands not only what you want, but why it's important. So when they understand the why, it motivates them to align with their goal or with the goal. So what does increasing your retention rate 20% actually do for the stylist? Well, if that compounds quarter after quarter, and let's say they're at a 60% retention rate and you get them to 90%, they're going to be almost 100% booked. That means that's less advertising for you. That means that the clients are returning. So they're going to start compounding their book every week. So you can go from $1,200 a week service sales to $4,000 a week just by increasing your retention rate. There's a couple levels you're going to pull or levers you're going to pull in your business, especially in the salon business. Obviously, your ticket price, right? How much is the ticket? It is like how much each client is paying. Now, there also is your service price. That directly affects your ticket price. Then there's how many visits your client makes to the salon over the course of a year. And then obviously your retention rate, right? If you're losing clients, then you have a leaky bucket and you have to fix that. So before you do anything, before you raise your prices, before you start taking a look at the lifetime value of the customer, and before you start taking a look at how often you want to get them back in the salon again, you have to take a look at your retention rate. So for this example right here, it's crucial that you have at least 75 to 85% retention rate at the floor. Like you want to be 85 to 95, to be honest with you. And so why is that important? You explain that to the stylist, why it's so important, and how reaching out to follow up with the client after the first visit is crucial for increasing that retention rate. So enough about that. Systems and foundations for success. Once you communicate the vision, the next step is building or implementing systems that support achieving the outcome. Building internal systems, you build them yourself. You design workflows, SOPs. That's standard operating procedures. That's your guide to drive the desired outcome you want. That's the system you put in place. That's the go-to manual you have either on a Google Drive, on a Word document, in a notebook somewhere. It's something that your team can go and reference. Those are your SOPs. Now, you can do this with a technique I like to use called the camcorder method. So if you're watching this right now, there's a camcorder method and then camcorder method 2.0 if you're in the program. And essentially what this is you record yourself, you film yourself doing a task. You film yourself doing the thing you want done, especially if you're a leader and you're getting overwhelmed, you have a lot on your plate. Film yourself doing it. Then what you do is you do a voiceover or you're speaking to a microphone as you're doing the task. You extract that transcription, upload it to ChatGPT, and have it create you the standard operating procedure based on the transcript that you just spoke into the camera or you just recorded. So now they have a video and they have an outline and a checklist and a transcript. So for an example, in our salon, when the Wi-Fi goes out, because for whatever reason it always goes out, and no one knows what to do. So I had Jessica film herself unplugging the certain wires and resetting the Wi-Fi. Jessica's the manager here in my salon. And then she created the standard operating procedure based on what she did and how she did it. So now next time the Wi-Fi goes out, they could just go right to the computer at the front desk. Wi-Fi is out. Here are the steps you have to do. Very, very simple. You could do this for online booking. Like if you have a bottleneck in the online booking process and your clients don't really know what to do, have the front desk person film what it's like to be a customer and book online. This does two things. A, you get a chance to experience what it's like to be a client and see if there's any friction and like anything you could change. But B, you take that video and you give it to your clients. You put it somewhere on your website, click here to learn how to book online. And you create your own little mini SOP for clients. That's a system, that's internal, that's what you build yourself. Or you could purchase them. So if let's say you are an amazing colorist and you own a salon, cutting's not your strong point, you can hire somebody to create your systems for cutting hair that you use in your salon. That's what you do when you purchase an external system. There's obviously other things you could purchase like technology, other educational courses, software, but typically in the salon world, if you have a weakness, then you could hire someone who that is their strength. They could help you create that system. So you're either going to build them yourself or you're going to purchase them. That's what you do with systems. Now, leadership philosophy, leading with intention. Effective leadership goes beyond tasks and outcomes. It's all about the philosophy and guiding principles. So here's a couple little guiding principles that I want you guys to think about for a second. Time versus money. So successful people invest money to save time. That's so crucial, especially if you own a business. So invest money to save time and then use that save time to grow your business further. Efficient leaders know that leveraging resources like time is crucial. Example, outsourcing administrative work so that you can focus on high value tasks like business strategies and growth. I outsource a lot. I have a team in the Philippines. I have a team in India. I got a team in Nigeria. I got a team here in my salon. I much rather work on growing the business because that's what my vision is. Like I know how to grow and scale. I know where we're going. I know where we're heading. And as an entrepreneur, as a visionary, a lot of times that's where my strength is at. I'm not good at like checklists and tasks. I'd rather get somebody who has that skill set and they're better at that and just put them in charge of it. It's a much better use of my time to be working on the marketing and growing the brand and growing the salon than sitting here doing the administrative tasks. It's a silly waste of my time. Teaching versus telling. This is great. So when you're teaching your team and you're helping them, learn the process, you teach by telling. So lead by teaching, not just telling. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're gonna teach them. You're gonna lead by teaching, not just telling them. So like, hey, put this over there. You want to be able to tell them a story about through your experience how putting this right here instead of here had a better outcome for you. So I'm trying to think of what I can use as an example right now. So for me, instead of just telling a stylist how to upsell a product, teach them the value and understanding how selling a product increases retention rate and how it worked in my life. That's why I got so busy. So every time that client, she goes to reach for a shampoo in a shower, she's like, oh shit, maybe I got to go to Jennifer for my next haircut or my color's growing out. So every time you sell retail to somebody, that also increases your retention rate. So it's important that you teach by telling them a story, by letting them know, hey, this is how this worked out for me when I did it this way. It's just more impactful when you do it that way. Process versus people. Processes are important, but leadership also requires empathy. It's about understanding that people grow and when they feel connected to the purpose of the organization. So it's really important that you explain the vision, you explain the why, you explain the story behind why you're doing what you're doing. And then the people really take full control over that process. Grit versus grind. So obviously, I'm a grinder. I came from the old era doing hair where I would, put in those 10, 12-hour days. I would, triple book. I would have a couple people in the salon at the same time. And that's just how we did it back in the day. But leadership is about caring. Leadership is caring about what your team cares about. When they see you care about their growth and well-being, they're most likely going to commit to the business's vision. So when it comes to like the grind, it's really important that they have that desire to achieve. That's grit. So they may not be able to grind like you do. Like for owners out there who are a little older, like my generation, they may not have that grind attitude, but you want to make sure they have the grit. You want to make sure that they're willing to put the work in where and when it's needed. Standard versus presence. All right. So I love this particular part of the class right here. Your salon, if you have the right systems in place, they will uphold your standard. They don't need your presence. So your team just needs to have your standards, not your constant physical presence. As a leader, you set the bar of quality. You don't need to micromanage. Focus on leading the team and upholding high standards, yourself included. So you set the standard, you set the floor. Your team's going to mirror you. So as long as you're showing up the way you're supposed to show up, as long as you're setting that standard for them, they're going to show up and they don't necessarily need your presence. So a lot of people feel like I got to be at the salon every single day that we're open. And that's not true. Put the right process in place, make sure the people have your standards, and you could have a free life. Like you're not going to be married to your business. And that's one of the complaints I hear a lot from owners is they feel like they can't ever go on vacation. They're always worried about the salon. Well, the things you're worried about, let's fix them. That's a constraint on your business. Even though it may not be a cash flow constraint, maybe it might be something else. Well, if that's keeping you up at night, well, figure out how to fix that so it's not keeping you up at night. Put a process in place, put a person in place, and get it handled so you could free up your mind to focus on the things that are important for you, for your family, for your business. There's nothing worse than being home with your family and not being present with them. It's a terrible feel. I've been there before. Horrible. Like you're sitting there worried about the salon, worried about the bills. Just there's no need for that. Like if you're at home, be at home. When you're at work, be at work. Make sure you have a process so when you get into work, you time block things out, you have your energy managed, and you're taking care of the things that are important. When you're at home, it's time to be a dad or a mom. It's not time to worry about what's going on in the salon. It's a hard pill to swallow, but if you put the right systems in place, you're going to be able to do that. All right. Here's what it comes when it comes down to a playbook or an SOP. Here are some things I want you guys to think about. One outcome for the playbook. Don't create an SOP with a bunch of different outcomes that you want. Just create a new playbook for that outcome. So you want one outcome. The playbook should center around one clear outcome. We will create a world-class experience. Now, training and videos. Incorporate training materials or videos to visually explain the process and expected behaviors. So if you are going to have your stylist call a client or text a client, give them a script, what they should ask, questions they should know that they should be asking, and then follow-up questions. Like one of the questions I like to ask if I'm calling for a follow-up visit, hey Jen, I really appreciate you leaving us 5 stars on our review email. But I gotta ask you a question. How could we get 7 stars from you? Like how can we make it even better experience? And that has worked out really well for me to get feedback. And they just kind of hit the 5 stars going down the right-hand side. Great experience, great haircut, and that's it. But that doesn't give me feedback. I want to know how we can make it better. And so I create a script for that. I create something that my team can read and follow. So when they take action on calling their client or texting them, they know what to do. So big steps / chunks. So break the outcome into big, manageable steps or sections. These sections should guide the team from the start of the process to completion. So you just want like big old chunks. Don't overcomplicate it. Very manageable steps, but don't make them so micro that it's like 55 different things they do. Call the client, contact the client. Could be texting, could be phone call, right? Keep it pretty simple. Checklist. Create a checklist in the most efficient sequence. Ensure that each task builds upon the last to help drive the outcome forward. This is where ChatGPT comes in. When you create that the camcorder method and you record yourself doing the whole entire task or whatever it is that you're doing, you could have ChatGPT take a look at your transcript and create you in sequence a checklist for that thing you just did. It's huge. All right, so some example playbooks for you. Define the client experience outcome, provide training videos and provide training videos on communication and service standards, establish core principles, outline the steps of client care process, create a checklist for a stylist to follow before and after each appointment. Like these are just simple little playbooks. You know how you run a salon. You know the things you did that got you successful. Anyone new coming into the industry, they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. So honestly, if you could record everything you do from coming into the salon to taking on foils, you'll create such an amazing SOP for your team that they never have to ask you questions because everything's laid out for them. From an assistant to the front desk, to the level one stylist, to your master stylist, to the opening team, to the closing team. Like if you create systems and processes with checklists, so every person knows exactly what you're doing, when to do it, you will have freedom as an owner. So that right here is the leadership systems. I hope that gave you a little more clarity on just on what to be doing as a leader, what systems mean, what a standard operating procedure actually means. So if you have any questions on that, you could drop it into the comments below. This is what I did to change my career. I got a lot of this information from my coaches, from people who actually ran other businesses other than salons. And I learned a lot from outside of our industry. Obviously, I had leadership training in the Marine Corps, but it didn't really trickle into my salon business. Like I wasn't running my salon like a well-oiled machine. And when I started taking a look at other owners, like, and especially my friends, they weren't stuck in their restaurant. They weren't stuck in their business. Like they had freedom. And I was too busy working in my business. I wasn't working on my business. I never had systems in place. I never had the ability to be like, all right, so and so, go check out that operating procedure. Or did you check the checklist yet? Did you review it? And then when I had a coach myself, they were like, well, what's your process for that? I was like, I don't know. I just do this, this, and this. Well, how do you articulate that to somebody? Because you're going to miss steps when you're doing it. Because you do things second nature and you don't even realize that you did 3 things in between step A and step B that you just overlooked on explaining. And so if you film yourself, you're going to be able to see what you're doing. So when you do your voiceover, you're like, oh, I did this, I did that, I did that, and I did that. And that's going to help give a clear destination and a clear path on how to get from point A to point B. So that is leadership systems. Hope that brought you a little value. Like I said, any questions, please leave it in the comment box below. And I will see you guys next time. All right. That was leadership systems. I know it's hard for you guys to see on the live because we did it on Zoom. And if you guys have any questions, James, any questions and comments?
We got a YouTube comment.
Sure. What is it?
I'm doing a low light to break up blonde. She does have gray, so at the root of use a 3N plus 20 DV, and from mid end 6N plus 10D.
What color line is that?
I don't think she's watching anymore.
All right, cool.
Then we have a question on Instagram. Good afternoon. I'm a licensed barber who just started cutting at a hair salon. Any advice on how long one should take before offering to buy the business? A year minimum?
You're going to offer to buy the business. How long have you been doing hair for?
Just started cutting at a hair salon, but he's a licensed barber.
Yeah, I mean, how booked are you? Can you pay the bills from what you bring in behind the chair? If you could pay the bills from what you're bringing behind the chair, then you can do it. So until you can fully cover the rent and all the expenses by yourself, then I wouldn't do it. Because you don't have the leadership skills yet. You don't have the ability to. What if someone has a mistake and you're going to fix it up? You need the experience in order to really fulfill every role in the salon as a leader or put somebody in place. So if you could hire someone to do that for you, that's fine. But it's going to be expensive to do that. So it's important that you understand that. All right, James, I'm going to hop on that call. Guys watching live, this will be up on YouTube. If you want to get the whole entire leadership process, send me the word leader. I'll send the outline to you that I read over here, and I'll send it to you through chat. And I'm going to hop on my call, James.